All right. We are back again for another cocktail conversations in the Counselor's Corner, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor, aka the Big College Grad. Also joining me is co-host Herbert Lewis, aka the Big Bad Wolf. So last week, we had discussed does emojis have an impact on adults relationships, and we had a jam-packed panel. Tonight we're going to look at the scenario summer loving happens so fast. So here's a snapshot. 16-year-old Paige, who is ranked number 3 in her graduating class, who is expected to get several full-ride scholarships, ends up getting pregnant by a 22-year-old, Michael, a recent college graduate. As a parent, how would you handle this life-changing situation? Also, stay tuned in for another segment of Who Needs Counseling? So, yeah, with this scenario, it brings a lot to mind. Several different variables we're going to look at. You can look at the fact that he's 22, she's 16. Most people, like a lot of people who commented on the post, was like, oh, he's going straight to jail, pressing charges. Some people said, well, he's a college graduate. That means possibly he will obtain a job, and he better be prepared to take care of their daughter and the baby. So also, you want to look at other different things as far as, okay, say if you did decide to press charges. Now, what kind of strain is that going to cause on your daughter? How is that going to impact your relationship with your child? And even though you'll say she's a child, but if that's someone that she's been intimate with, has feelings for, and now he has to do time, and just think about when he gets out, what impact is that going to have on his record? So it's a lot of things to think about in this situation. Also, if it was reversed and it was your 16-year-old son that got a 22-year-old woman pregnant, would you press charges on her and send her to jail, or you would say, well, she's the mother, so she's the one going to be primarily taking care of the child. So I don't want, she can't go to jail because I may not want that concern. So it's a lot of different things to think about in that case. And we can look at the Romeo and Juliet laws. People might say he's a pedophile and different things like that. So very, interesting subject matter. Gwendolyn said when she becomes pregnant, she's emancipated, and the law would tell you you don't have a right to much. And that very well may depend on the different states or whatever far as that. Because many states, some are 17, 18 years old, far as consensual sex, but then there's a handful of states that's 16. So just a lot to think about. Herb, the Big Bad Wolf, man, what's your take on this subject with that young lad? Got him that little 16-year-old. Should he have put her on layaway and said, you know what? When you get 18, it's on and popping. Or seemed like he just couldn't hold out.
Well, you know what? Let's run with the layaway plan for a moment. It probably would have solved any legal blowback that this young man might encounter. As you mentioned, 16 is the legal age of consent in some states. In some states, I know New York is 17, and some states are 18. So that will govern a great deal in terms of what the state might do, because people have to realize statutory rape is something that the state picks up. It doesn't have to be a parent. So if this young man doesn't step in and accepts the responsibility that he's put himself in, he could be in legal. The legal ramifications could probably compel him to, hey, I did it, I stepped in it, so let me fully embrace what I stepped in. So, there's always that aspect. The thing that I said though on the post was, and shout out to Dr. Dunbar, he's doing a Mother's Day stream, and he's talking about how parenthood has changed. And I think this is where one of the major shifts in parenting has changed. So much has fallen on the shoulders of a single parent, whether it be a mother or father. So now we're looking at things differently. No longer is the family classified as mother, father, and children. More often than not, it's classified as mother, children, and father if he's around for whatever reason, whether it's divorce, infidelity, or this is just a situation where not a wedlock birth happens. So we look at the concept of the village really is no longer functional. Certainly, it wasn't as we knew it growing up. Somebody was always there to pick up the slack in case the original parents were unable to or just couldn't do as good a job as the village thought could be done. So they would almost, in essence, play Geppetto. They would allow some primary functions to occur, but if they saw something that was lacking, they would almost, kind of backdoor it, if you will. And I could best explain that in this way. There's a father in line with his son, and they went to see a premiere of a movie, and the son had really, really wanted to see it, and the father was struggling financially. Father reaches in his pocket and realizes he doesn't have the money. There's an older gentleman behind them, very well to do, and he drops some money on the floor, unbeknown to the gentleman in front of him. And he taps him on the shoulder and he says, "Sir, I believe you dropped something." He reached down to the floor. I'm sorry, pointed to the floor and said, "I believe you dropped something." And, it was enough money to cover the price of the film and some other things. The gentleman, knowing what had been done, said, "Oh, you know what? Thank you very much, sir." I think that mentality is gone. It's certainly very limited. So what we're dealing with now is that society, for better or for worse, has put people in a situation to where that village isn't there. So what needs to be done, or at least what I would do as a father, if this was the situation that I was going to be in potentially as a grandfather, is to say, look, this is a situation that you find yourself in. And this is regardless of what the young man does. I'm going to assume you're going to keep the child, but this in no way absolves you of going to school, getting the education that you were on track to get, and still being a responsible adult, because your child days are over. So the going out, hanging with your friends, the want to go out after, on the weekends to the club, maybe have a drink out, them days are done. This is the decision that you made. So now you have to embrace all the ramifications and the consequences that come with it, for better or for worse. You might curse the situation, you might hate it, but this is the decision that you and this gentleman made. Like I said, my responsibility as a potential grandfather is not to address that gentleman. It's to address my daughter. Some people will say, well, why? Why does she have to bear the brunt of it and not him? Because she is my responsibility as my daughter. He's a grown man. The child is going to be my focus, and the well-being of my daughter. Those are my two focuses, not him. Like I said, if he decides to step in and play the role that he put himself in, fantastic. But they're still going to need guidance, one way or the other. I'm going to assume that it's his first child. Certainly is my daughter's first child. So I understand the pitfalls that she's going to encounter having to deal with a child, especially a toddler, a newborn, when she doesn't have the patience, midnight feedings, all the things that come along, all the trappings, quote unquote, if you will, that comes along with being a parent. And some people will say, well, how do I know what it's like to be a parent? I don't have any kids. And, I always try and tell people, just because I don't have any kids of my own doesn't mean I don't understand what it's like to actually be a parent.
All right. So I'm going to read some of the like the 5 stages, 6 stages we go through. But I'm going to read the entire scenario. I should have did that first. So your 16-year-old daughter, who will be a rising senior in her fall, ranked number 3 in the graduating class, will be expecting to get several full-ride scholarships to college. Michael, 22 years old, just recently graduated from college with a bachelor's in business management. Started fooling around with Paige. Paige had a crush on Michael since she was very young. Paige ends up getting pregnant, and now college may be pushed to the back burner. How are you going to handle this life-changing situation? So some of the perspectives were, I will be kicking that 22-year-old's ass for getting my child pregnant. Someone also said, I will support my child, but a plan needs to be created. And once she deviates from the plan, she needs to rely on Michael. Someone else said, I have no right to want to take a life if my child decides to keep her child. Someone else said, I would love her regardless, but before that happens, we will discuss preventative measures. Someone else also said a 22-year-old and a 16-year-old is fucking and totally inappropriate. Someone else said society has dictated situations like this when it came to calling it rape. But these situations were happening a long time ago when men were impregnating women 3 times their age. So here's some of the background knowledge of it. People know that this happens more than often. The only difference is instead of the 22-year-old having a bachelor's degree, he typically has his certification in street pharmacology. Complicated scenarios with a lot to consider. Situations like this are usually based on the values of the parents. Also, you have to look at Michael's role in this. And does he have feelings for Paige, or did he watch her evolve from a little girl with a crush to a young lady that has filled out and has become irresistible? Actions. If Paige was my daughter, I would be devastated with all the potential scholarships going down the drain. Michael and I would need to have a man-to-man conversation. I need to see where he was going with this relationship with Paige. Does he have a girlfriend already? I don't know if I would jam this young man up, but my interrogation of him would be pretty intense. And some of the consequences. This could play out in many ways, but talking to Paige would be imperative. Finding out her perception of the situation would be huge. I simply need to know what Paige's game plan is. Does she think she is ready for this challenge? What does Michael's parents say about this issue? This situation would be a hot mess. The ultimate outcome that keeps playing in my head is Michael leaving town after landing the job, or his college girlfriend showing up and my little princess going into a deep depression. So,
and you know what? I think that's key. And given those comments that you've read, what I'm hearing are the 5 or 6 stages of grief. And I don't wallow in certain aspects. I'm quick to move through the acceptance stage. I don't, the depression, the denial, the anger, the I can't remember the other ones. But, she's going to have enough angst surrounding her, being that this is her first time going through this. And I would think that the last thing that she needs to deal with is a father who's agitated, or a father and or mother who's agitated. Let's assume that she's actually come from a home where the mother and father are together. They raise her up to be a certain way, and she strays from that. She's going to have to deal with her own internal pressures. So the last thing that you want to do is make it uncomfortable for her. You don't want to start to put her feet to the fire, because she's going to do that herself. I know a female that I dated probably about 6 years ago that actually fits what I'm talking about. Raised in a Christian home, got pregnant at a young age, went on to get her, I can't remember what she got her bachelor's in, and I'm not going to mention any names because she's not here to speak on anything. But by all um, parameters, turned out to do reasonably well. But it's not ideal. And I know we have the women on the panel who always, they fight tooth and nail for for single mothers. And what I always try and stress is, as a parent, you should want the ideal situation for your child to bring another child into the world. And I don't think there's going to be many people that say a single parent home, whether male or female, is ideal. So we always, that theme is a reoccurring theme, and it's never going to die because these situations happen. And people will say, "Well, this is a rarity," and it's already been brought up in the comments that this was commonplace until law stepped in and said, "Okay, look, we can't continue to have men prey upon these younger women and potentially leave them devastated because they've done this multiple times." They and before travel was what it was, you had men that had the ability to impregnate multiple women and leave a town and probably go over to the next town to repeat that cycle. So you have a bunch of homes that are broken due to no fault of the female, but you have a reckless guy out here who's running around running amok. So, like you said, David, there's a lot of different ways this could be looked at. So this is why just me as a father, I wouldn't go chase down the guy. He's not my responsibility. He's an adult male, and if he's not going to play the role, I'm going to make it simple for him. When I catch him around, look, he's your biological child, yes, but what you don't have the right to do is to ruin my daughter's future by coming and going as you please. So either you in or you out. We will provide for the child, but ultimately, that child should know who you are. That child should have some semblance of what type of man you are. So when he or she grows up, at least they can say, "Well, I know my father. I've met with him. Him and my mother, they engaged in consensual sex. I came about as a result of their decision, but he was never in my life." And we could point to Shaquille O'Neal. Never knew his biological father. Had a stepfather step in, raised him to be the man that he is, and he always points out the role that his stepfather played in his maturation and his growth as a man. So I think that's where my focus personally would be. I would, I'm not looking for that guy to do with anything other than what that guy's going to do. Whatever that guy does, that's what he does.
All right. Lakia, good evening. How you doing?
I'm well, and you guys, how you doing?
Great, great,
Doing well.
great.
Good evening.
So, as the only female panel member, what's your take on everything that's been said so far in this whole scenario?
There's a lot that's been said. So, just thinking about it, it's happening all the time, and have been a single mother, young mother myself. It's very touchy, you know. In this type of scenario, my thought would be the focus is my child, unless it was a rape situation, and if it's not, if it is, then that's a different scenario. But if it's because it was consensual and it was my daughter and she got pregnant by an older guy, then we just have to I deal with her and the child. That's my first priority. The guy is not my priority. But would I make it difficult? Would I try to put him in jail? No, because she made the choice. If she's consenting to something that, of course, we're trying to teach our children not to, to wait till they get older. But sex is all over the place. Sex is, and it's not nothing new. It's been there for years. It's been there before our time. So, as far as it being, young people having sex at young ages. people having sex at a young age, period. It's been going on for years. And then secondly, if it was my son that got someone pregnant at a young age, I would definitely make him accountable for and make him do what he needs to do for that child. And hopefully it was consensual. Hopefully that they were able, that she was in agreement with it, and hopefully the parent would not do anything to try to get at him. But that's why I've always taught my sons, and as my younger boys are growing up, and I'll teach them. But as I taught my older son, don't walk into nobody's house unless their parent calls me and say, okay, I said they were okay to come into this house. So that lets me know you are well aware of him, his age, and he's coming to see your daughter, Same with my daughters too. I wouldn't want I go and meet their friends. I meet their boyfriends and their boyfriends' parents. I try to stay in communication with the kids. So that's what I would say as parents, that's what we need to stay more in communication and more aware of their whereabouts so that hopefully this can be prevented. And somebody said if it was a different response if the guy was 32. No, it would be different because she's now an adult. 22 years old. She's an adult.
No, I'm thinking he's saying if the guy was 32 and she was 16 instead of him being 22, would that make a difference?
Oh. we might have a problem.
I mean, but what can you do? But what can you do? Honestly, like if he was 32 and she consented to have sex with him, she said, "Mom, I slept with him." And willingly, I would be angry, and I would be angry with him because, of course, like why? Like why would you want a young woman like that? Of course, I wouldn't be excited or happy. I'm not gonna be happy if it was a 22-year-old. I won't be happy at all. But am I gonna sit there and harbor on it? I can't. It's something she chose to do, and hopefully, and then now I have to make sure I teach her. Hopefully, that she'll make better choices and make sure that child is in a good environment. That's all you can really do. Would I put him in jail? If she said, "Mommy, he came to me, and just kind of just took advantage of her," that's another story. Then I would have to handle it that way. It's tough.
I got to reflect back on a portion of my life when you said that, David. I had to sit back and start to think. I was in a situation similar. I was 29, she was 17. She never got pregnant, but the thing about my situation was, had she, I was in the position to take her in, and certainly would have. That would never been an issue. So now I got to play devil's advocate against my own self. I have to. I'm compelled to. The situation calls for it, so I have to. So I have to think. Me and this guy got to sit down. We got to have a chat. Or pour him a shot of whatever he drinking, Patron, Crown. If you like the Henny, we gonna sit down. We gonna have a chat, and I might have the old shotty on standby.
Now,
what's your intentions?
Now, Herb, that you said you was 29 and she was 17.
Yes.
Like, what was her parents' involvement at the time? The 17-year-old.
Well, she was emancipated, so that probably kind of colors my situation a little bit. We met while we were at work, so and that was the other thing I was thinking about is how does a 16-year-old and somebody that's 22 really meet? Because he's in college for whatever the situation is, and at 16, unless you happen to be on a college visit and he's a chaperone, I don't see how they meet unless they're in church.
No, it happens. No, that happens anywhere because just as to speak as a woman, I could tell you how if you look older than 16, it can happen anywhere. It can happen in a grocery store, it can happen at a gas station, it can happen when you're walking on the street. Guys pull up on the side of you saying, "Hey, they watching your butt while you're walking and they get enticed. They want to talk to you." It can happen anywhere. And to know, I can say for sure, I know someone that's 16 and their boyfriend was 26 because the girl was more a mature. We would have thought it was a mature person, but still need maturity and growth. But it happens any and everywhere. Doesn't matter. It could be a library. It could be anywhere.
Well, in the scenario, it says she had a crush since she was younger. So I'm thinking he might have been like a neighbor or something. So somewhere that lived close to around in the neighborhood that she kind of watched uh, as he got older, was liking him, and I guess apparently he must have been feeling her as well.
They were girls like that, and I don't know if 16 was necessarily that age, but they were labeled fast. It's mother. I could all hear my mother say, or hear a woman in the neighborhood say, "Sit your fast ass down." you know, and I did at the time. I didn't really quite understand what the hell that meant. Fast? She ain't moving. She ain't. I can outrun her. She's not fast. The hell are you talking about? She can't move. She's slow. And it wasn't until you got out of high school or somewhere about that you started to understand, because we were never, at least I wasn't at that age, we weren't sat down and really explained the elements of sexual reproduction. Sometimes you learned it on the street. Sometimes you may have learned it piecemeal from an older sibling or just kids in the neighborhood. I remember we played hide and go get it. We didn't have a thorough idea what the hell that meant. 10th Street
I
Park.
go get it.
Hey, I can remember those days at 10th Street Park, man. We running around and the way 10th Street Park was set up was Nabisco. For those of you who are familiar with the Triscuit brand, we had Nabiscos that actually sat at the edge of the park, and maybe about 20 yards, it was an arc that rung the base or the park, and it separated the factory or the mill from there. So we could always go get lost in the weeds for 15, 20 minutes. You weren't considered lost. Oh, where's such and such at? Well, they're back there in the weeds. And the mother and father already knew what the hell might happen. They come calling. If you didn't come, there was some problems. Let's just put that out there in the wood. There was some problems. So, a far cry from our childhoods then to what we have now. You have so many different ways that a 16-year-old and a 22-year-old can meet. Apps, gaming is huge. I mean, I remember being in my late 20s, very early 30s, playing SOCOM or Madden. Those games really aren't rated M. They're rated E, essentially, because they're non-violent games, no blood. So you could pick up the game and be playing against somebody that's 15, 16, and you thinking, where the hell are you? I remember sitting in my living room, 2 o'clock in the morning, playing SOCOM. And SOCOM is rated M. SOCOM is strictly rated M for mature because of the graphic nature, because you're killing. You pick up the headset, and the way that SOCOM worked was it was a multiplayer game. So you could be talking among 16 people, which are all your teammates, and you were battling against another side. And we had people that would get on there, and we could just hear the voices. It's just like, shouldn't you be in bed? No, my mother and dad are asleep. They don't care as long as I'm in the house. And I think that's part of the problem that we have in America. There are things. So they are able to play these games, and the games bleed across lines and boundaries. And the next thing you know, your son or your daughter is out with somebody who might be age inappropriate, and something like this happens. And the first thing the parents want to do is start pointing fingers at everybody else, and it's just thinking. And the question comes out, well, where were you at when this all occurred? And all of a sudden, the dissenting opinion kind of quiets down.
It,
Go ahead, look here.
go ahead. No, I was going to say that, you said about fast-tailed girls, like, that, we heard that. We still hear it these days. You probably hear it from more of the older generation than the
Yeah.
younger generation. But that's, to me, is like also stigmatizing the young women as if they were being fast-tailed, because it doesn't always have to be the young girl that's being fast-tailed. But I remember that saying. But the one that I did want to ask David is, how old was she again when she had the crush on him?
I'm not even
Did
sure.
it
I
say?
mean, it
But she
didn't
was
say in the
younger,
scenario. She is younger.
and
So just say hypothetically, and just say if she was 12, which
then
would have
at that
made him
time she
like
was
18.
younger, right? So I mean, they could have been, just hanging around in the neighborhood. Sometimes guys look at little girls like, oh, that's my little sis. I remember growing up in South Avenue, and there were guys that I was the only child, so there was always guys that would see us playing and be like, oh, that's little sis, my little cousin, whatever. But when you get older and you start developing, and you start, and they start seeing you, things taking place with your body, and it's appealing. Men are, visual, so they like to, they whatever they see, they're turned on by what they see. So that begins to change the dynamic. And now he's 22 and seeing a change in her body, and now it's because she's older and she probably is acting a little bit more mature, that it could cause that situation to happen. So I mean, it could be stages to it. He could have been hanging out with her brothers, and coming over to the house, and seeing her as a little girl, but now she's an adult, or maybe becoming, older and developing, and now seeing her in a different light. It can happen all kind of ways. So could you, hopefully, as a parent, as you're saying, her, you can try to be mindful of where your child is, but things like this, it happens right, right under your nose, and you just never pick it up. You just don't know. We can't be everywhere all the time. So we just hope that as parents, we could just teach them, listen, be able to be open where your child can talk to you, feel comfortable talking to you about these guys or girls. And that's the type of relationship I strive to have with my children, is a open relationship. Will give them that comfortability to come and talk to me about these things. Because what I say to them is, I got to teach you. Who else is going? I don't want the streets to teach you. I want to be able to, I mean, I'm here as a parent to guide you and to teach you what could happen if you go in this direction or that direction. So, those are things I just want to say as far as being a parent. All we can do is strive to teach them, but we can't prevent things from happening.
One of the
And I
things that
Go ahead, Dave.
one of the things that I think about, and this statement is made a lot as far as men and some women, when they look at a child and they project and make statements like, man, she gonna be fine as hell when she get older. Or you have older women like, oh, he gonna be a cutie or whatever. That's my little boyfriend right there. What does that really mean when people say stuff like that? Are they really thinking deeply? Are they having like hidden desires when they say that? Okay, I can see if you're a man and a girl, and maybe the girl's in high school and she's about to graduate. Like, oh, she gonna be all right when she get old. But when it's like they're like 10, 11, 12, I don't know how good that sounds. And even as far as women saying it about little boys, because we know it happens with boys more than it's reported. And many boys may not tell because, and I can tell you, and I brought this up before on shows, that I grew up with some boys that used to do little, as my grandmother would say, manage things with grown women. Now
Mm-hmm.
they were happy to come and brag to me and like, dude, you need to get off North Avenue and come over on this side. We got things going on. Such and such mother let us grind on her. And I'm like, ugh. like this grown woman, like, yeah, man, but you got to get away from the house and come over. No, ill, no, that's nasty, whatever. The things was going down, and they were feeling like, yeah, I'm a champ, whatever. So those are things that we have to be mindful as well.
And it's just like Gwendolyn said, peer pressure. Peer pressure play a huge, almost an inordinate role in the lives of teenagers. For me, it really didn't, and I think I was blessed with the ability to be by myself and not be affected like that, and also by the fact that I was in foster home, so it kind of broke up any type of peer pressure groups that I would have probably, in, and to a degree, conformed to. And the reason why I say that to a degree is because of this. I hung out with people that smoked weed and drank. I didn't. I didn't have my first alcohol, your first drop of alcohol until I was 24. And people, they're just amazed when I tell that story. They look at me like I have three heads and they're trying to figure out which one's the the real one. And I just say I've never felt the need to consume alcohol to be free. I'm one of the few black men I know that has never tried marijuana. People, they really look at me like, are you black? Almost as if it's a rite of passage. So you have a lot of those intricacies growing up in the inner city, especially if you grow up, in a single parent home, that, it's like David saying, those boys on the next block over probably view that as a rite of passage, into manhood, because we don't have that in our community. In the Jewish community, they have bar mitzvahs. I know in certain Asian communities, they have certain things that they do that for boys, I'm not sure about girls, that it symbolizes moving from adolescence into adulthood. And I don't know if, somehow we can actually start to foster, something, in our communities or in our homes. Let's not even worry about the communities. Let's worry about the homes first, to where we can say, hey, look, let me take you out here. Let me put you through these paces. Let me teach you some things so you understand what part of your life you're moving into and what's going to be expected of you and what you might need to do if certain situations arise. So I think, there's a lot of information that these kids aren't armed with. It's the old slogan that G.I. Joe used to have after every show. Knowing is half the battle. And a lot of these kids, they fight in the battle then. They're just unarmed. They don't know. They don't have any weapons. They're defenseless. And they literally meander out to the world. And they are sheep for slaughter, waiting to be sheared, cut, and ate. And that's something, we have to figure out as a country. We have to figure out how to arm these kids with this information, especially now in a never-changing society where danger is just a click away. And literally, it's a click away. They can be lured away, and something we just had a young lady, presumably, and I'm not gonna jump the gun. That's why I say presumably, she has ended her life. A young lady from Buffalo State College, I believe she was out of New York City, and they had been searching for her for about the last 2 weeks, and I think it's an extremely tragic situation. But we have to find a way to avert these types of situations. And we spoke about mental illness about a month ago. So apparently, whatever she was going through, she didn't feel like she had anywhere to turn to. And I don't know her familiar situation, so I'm not going to comment on that. But we have to be able to give people outlets to where they can turn when things go bad, so they don't take that step.
Well, I think in that situation, and I know, Lakia, you had shared that with me earlier about, I guess, her boyfriend had broken up with her, and I guess she had been trying to reach out to him, he said what he said, broke up with her, and then kind of ignored her. She must have connected with a friend and must have said she's gonna end it all. And they played video games for a while, and then that's when she caught the bus to Niagara Falls and was around Goat Island and stuff. Maybe called her mother back and left a message. She missed her call. Then next thing it was no tracing, or they couldn't get a ping on her phone, and who knows what happened. Very unfortunate, very sad, because that's the one thing as a parent. You think you sending your child off to college and things are good. You're happy. You're bragging about it. Oh, they doing good in college their way, and you never know the social aspects that children go through. And sometimes, you know, hopefully they'll have that open relationship with you, that they'll be able to let you know this is going on or I'm going through it. Some of them keep it to themselves because they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be viewed as like the black sheep, because some of us have, real old school values, and we may say stuff like, oh, we don't do that. You better get it together. We don't
Mm-hmm.
talk about hurting ourselves, whatever. We don't do crazy and all of that stuff. And clearly she didn't have must felt she didn't have nowhere else to turn, and that's very sad to me. It's very sad for somebody who probably had a world of potential. And just think about the boyfriend now. What are you gonna go through for the rest of your life, and how are you gonna feel about? Not that it's his fault. People are entitled to break up with people, and it would it's a hard it's just a hard pill to swallow. And we know in most cases like that, after 24, 48 hours, whatever they say, more than likely, most of the time, they're not going to be alive.
If we be honest, I don't know about, I can't speak for everybody, but growing up, for the people, women around, young girls around me that were my friends, we were growing up, we didn't have that openness to talk to our parents. We didn't feel like we can go to our parents and say, hey, mom or dad, this is going on. We felt like you said, David, we did, so that's why that would help if we would allow a more openness and a more receptive. Like I had a situation with one of my children, and I remember I had called them on the phone and we were talking, and they was like, "Mom, such and such and such," and but I know you would be upset with me if I told you. I said, "No, that's what I'm here for. I'm supposed to be the one that helped teach you. I'm the one that's supposed to help you understand what's going on because I've been here longer than you. But if we don't have that openness, if they don't feel that, and they feel alone already, and they're trying to do what they're supposed to do, going to college, and I have kids in college, and I have kids, period. Just even in high school, kids commit suicide all around. So in all age groups, it's just still sad that I don't know. I just hope that if that's the case, that that she had an openness. I don't know if she had openness. We can't even speak on that. But that's the thing I'm just trying to say is that keep open. Like when we start putting up these barriers and try to put these expectations on our children when we haven't even arrived or become um, like full of knowledge and understanding in all things in life. We're still growing as adults. So if we are still growing as adults, why are we expecting our children to act like adults when adults are still acting like children? And I'm not saying we should not like have a level of, okay, if they come up with something happens in their life, okay, maybe they didn't know. So let me teach you. Well, like you would think, oh, they should know this. Maybe they don't know. And sometimes it take us more than one or two or three times to get hit upside the head to understand things as well as adults. So what I strive to say is with things like that, we have to cut the expectation off our kids so much and take off that weight and be able to be that person, that parent that they can come to and feel comfortable talking with so that they can grow. And who better else that they can trust to give them to give them some good information. Their parent. I said, because people out there in the world, they ain't gonna do nothing but swallow you up, chew you up and swallow and chew you up and spit you out. But as your mother or your father, I'm going to protect you and I'm going to try to help guide you in the right direction. So that's the type of things that I think about when I hear, someone wanting to commit suicide, a child or young person. Let's keep it open. Stop the judgment of
which
our own kids when we haven't even arrived.
which makes me think, even with this scenario with the 22-year-old and the 16-year-old, they say research says that our brains don't develop until we get like 25. So even as a 22-year-old, is he really
They're not.
making all the right decisions or
No.
whatever the case is to say, all right, let's put him in jail, let's press charges? Because think about it, even, I mean, 24 or 18, is there really much of a difference, whatever, as far as they may have been through more things? So hearing many people say that, oh, he's going to jail and he's 22. He's 22. He got book knowledge and all of that stuff from going to college, but that doesn't always equate to street knowledge or everyday situational knowledge. So that's something we would have to look at before you say, you know what, he graduated. Let's get him, press charges and lock him up and try to destroy him, because you're destroying multiple people in that case. But if he's a stand-up guy at 22 and say, yeah, I messed up. I mean, I probably shouldn't have went there. I liked her. We liked each other. She was mature. We had fun together. I'm going to work and get a job. In fact, I'm going to get a couple jobs, and I'm going to be there to take care, and I'm going to do my part. All you can do is honor it and say, well, I guess it's better than, like I said, a street pharmacist or something like that. So you have to look at that as well. You have to weigh that as well for the people that commented like, oh, he's going straight to jail.
You know what? I gotta read something Gwendolyn has written, and it gave me pause to think about something that happened in my life, and I'll try and truncate that story to make it fit. She said, when girls get older, they slowly put space between, start keeping secrets, experimenting. We cannot control our children when they reach a certain age. Now, I recall distinctly when I was at Buff State, I was 23. Met a young female at a nightclub. I used to come back home from Buff State to work on the weekend, so I would always have some pocket money. And if I missed the last 40, I was saying I'm kind of stuck at home. So I was like, I might as well go out and party. Not, I wasn't drinking at the time, so it was just something to do. So I wasn't, at my mother's house. Happened to meet a young female. Now I'm thinking I'm in a club. She's of age. Didn't find out she was 17 until years late or months later. Her and I end up, dating in she was Canadian, I was American, and we would get together whenever possible. And when Gwendolyn put that in there, like I said, it just brought up the story, and I'm just thinking, at what point do we as adults, or we as parents, can I say we as parents, at what point do parents start to ease up on the reins and give their children room to grow and experiment? Because at some point in time, they need to be able to go out in the world and make some errors so they can grow. And I'm going to reference a song by Billy Joel, and he says, the only thing that you can call your own are your mistakes. So at what point do we allow the kids the freedom to go out to the world and make some mistakes? Like I said, some mistakes that don't hurt them physically, or emotionally, and that they can recover from, and that the next time a situation arises, they can say, okay, you know what? I remember when I was in this situation and I did this, that didn't work. So let me not make that decision and let me do this. And you guys can answer that question after anybody else can delve into that after I put this out. Two times in my life when I was on the opposite spectrums of of joy and, I suppose, the acknowledgement of the ending of something that I just never really thought about. I remember that my last time of leaving my dorm room in Port Hall when I was academically dismissed, and I thought, this is not the way my college life was supposed to end. My college life was supposed to end with me getting a degree, not me being academically dismissed. And I was in a rush to get all my things out of the dorm room because I had literally the last day, because I had so many things going on at that time. And the realization really didn't hit me until that September came back around and I was still at home. Wasn't going back to campus. And it was just like, her, I expect better of you. And this wasn't an adult speaking to anybody. This was just me speaking. And I put nobody puts more pressure on me than me. Nobody really ever has put more pressure on my performance other than me. Not my mother, siblings, or anybody else. Well, maybe a couple other people when I dropped out of high school. But I've always expected the best of myself. I always expect myself to do well, to excel. I'm looking to be perfect. I don't care what anybody says about me being human and I can't be perfect. That's what I'm looking to do. So I contrast that with when I actually closed on my home and I got my keys and I just came in here one day. There was no furniture, nothing. House is empty. And I just sat on the counter in the kitchen and literally, I don't know if it was just the confluence of all the things that I had never ever achieved or the things that I had never ever thought that I could achieve. And it was almost overwhelming to the point where I just wanted to tear up and just sit there and just say, this is what I fought so hard to achieve. This isn't something that I ever thought I could do. So pressure is a funny thing, even as adults, how we handle and manage it doesn't always say a lot about us overall, but it does say a lot about us in the moment. We get some people that in the moment, they do a poor job of handling pressure. And then when they go back and look at the situation, they say, you know what? I should have done that differently. I wish I'd done that differently. So I always try and walk myself, especially being in security. I always try and walk myself through the absolute most asinine, improbable situations, so I have a gauge of how I'm going to react mentally. And people say, "Well, why would you do that?" Because it always puts me in the mind frame of how to handle such a situation. Like, what would I do if somebody came into my job with the intent to rob and shoot? I work midnights, and in the area I work in is more of a tourist area, so the odds of somebody coming in armed with that intent are probably slim and none. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. So I'm always running those scenarios through my head and saying, what would I do? How would I react? What would I say? So those, that's just me. I figured I could put those stories out there.
Thanks for sharing. Kia, you got anything?
Yeah, I wanted to share that. Um, okay, I'm gonna be a little transparent. Well, my son was in college, and you said it, and there's two things I want to actually talk about. Mention the one guy Greg was saying about parental encouragement and expectations. I think I want to change the word from expectations to high standards. We put these standards on our children because you do have some levels of expectation, but these standards. Um, and my son Jalen went to college. He went to Alfred U. his first year, they said Alfred was the party state school. That's the part you go there. It's the party school. He went for football. That first semester, which with most kids with the first semester, is it, especially having that freedom, because you've been sheltered, most your youth, and now you got that 1 year of freedom, that first year of freedom, and it just takes you over. And that's what happened with him, unfortunately. But he was disappointed in himself. I was disappointed, but I think he was just so more disappointed in himself when he realized this is about to end for me
Yeah,
because his grades were horrible.
it's jarring. It is. I
Right.
mean,
So just to finish, if it's okay, that he was so disappointed in himself, he said, "Okay, I got to get out this school." He knew he could hang there, and wound up going to an HBCU college. He went to Central State and graduated, and became an RA, became a mentor. He grew. Sometimes, like as Gwendolyn said, I think sometimes they have to, they have to experience life, and as it was said, I think you said as well, Herbert, they have to experience life. In some instances, but we just hopefully just be there to support them through that process. Um, but I strive as a parent to not shelter my kids too much and to project my fears on my children or any fears because I don't want them to be fearful of living life. And it's like, our kids go outside and play, they go to the park, they ride their bike. We're not going to always be there. Um, I'm not going to always be there. I was there when they were babies and they couldn't take themselves to the park. That's where I was. We was always at the park, take my little grill, cook out there, let them just run ragged because they weren't going to drive me crazy sitting in the house all day. But as they became right, I'm just say, your house full of kids. No, let's go to the park, and y'all play with each other. And I'll sit here, read a book, and make some hot dogs, hamburgers, and get some little Capri Suns, and and just do our thing outside, and then go home, take a bath, and get some sleep. But when they become older, you let them have their freedom. But my thing is just let me know where you're going. So if anything happens, I know where to find you. And then sometimes I might do a little drive by just to make sure that's where they are. They have to build that trust. We had to build trust with each other. Then to go into my, so now I got a 365 Life app. So Life 360 app. Now I know where everybody is. So that's even better. But and then I have my daughter went to college. I can say she did good with grades, but she got into an altercation with her roommate. So that was the whole thing. Yeah, like they wanted to kick her out of the
I've been
dorm,
there.
right?
I've been there.
So they wanted to kick her out of the dorm because her and her roommate got into a fight, and she didn't want to tell me because she was scared that I was gonna be upset and disappointed and da 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 da. And I couldn't even get the real story out of that girl. I was like, girl, what happened? Mom, you don't need to know, but you can't go back to your dorm. No. She was 8 hours away. 8 hours away, 7 to 8 hours away, depending on traffic. So to make a long story short, it worked out. She was like, she worked it out. I told her, figure it out. You have to allow them to grow so that they could experience, say, mom and dad is not going to always be there. And that's what I teach my kids. I'm not going to always be here. God forbid, I'll leave here anytime soon. But who's to say I won't be here tomorrow? And if I'm not going to be here tomorrow, how are you going to handle it? Because mom might not be here. And she handled it. You have to know your children. And I think in time, you have to be in tune with what your children's strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And and operate in that as a parent. And that's what I would say. Each child is different. The maturity level is different. So I can't treat one the way that I treat another. But they all talk about who's fair. You got to be fair with them all. And they all want to know who's the favorite. I said, y'all all came out this womb, so y'all are my favorites. So there's no favorites. I don't play that game either, because I know that happens a lot too. I ain't gonna go into that, but I don't play the. I had all of them, so ain't no favorite.
You know
But
what the
I would
funny
just
thing?
say,
You know what the funny thing that comes to mind is my mother had her favorites. Oh, there was no question about it.
No, I don't do favorites.
But it didn't bother us because her favorite was the daughter. And the way my family sets up is the age range between the oldest and the youngest is about 30 years, 30 to 35 years. So the oddly enough, the bookends are my oldest sister and my youngest sister, and then there's another sister that's in between. But the boys really, it's almost an accordion with the boys. So it didn't matter if our sister was a favorite. Hell, she didn't have anybody else to hang out with. She wasn't going anywhere with us. She wasn't going to play football. She wasn't going to play basketball. She wasn't going to hang out with us. We was like, go with your mother. And that was almost the way we treated her. We was like, it's an afterthought. We're going to play football. Well, what am I going to do? So she would always, and acknowledgement to my mother. My mother had no bad habits. She didn't smoke, didn't drink. The worst thing my mother did, play cards. My mother was a card shark. And we learned early on in life, don't sit down and play with her because she'll take your pennies. And you better not cry. That was the one thing my mother, boy, you've been, clean them tears up. You sat down, I told you what I was going to do to you. Don't sit your ass down here and play with me because I'm going to take your money. So we learn. There's a consequence for your decision. You think you're ready to be grown, we're going to teach you what being grown is about. So we learned real early in life that, hey, look, there's some stuff that we're not ready for yet, and we need to sit our behind down and speak less, listen more, and even more importantly, watch. Because there's a lot of things we saw as kids that we didn't do because we knew better. We saw what happened to so-and-so that did that, and so-and-so ended up like this. That ain't gonna be me. I'm not going home and get my ass whipped. I'm not gonna be the one talking about, see, did we tell you? Now look what we gotta do to you. And now that was, was almost the added or the euphemism that we heard. This is gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you.
That's so true. That we say, and it does at times. But I did want to also go back to what you said, David. Trying to look at my notes. That when you talked about the young man, back to the young man being 22 years old, you know how they say girls mature faster than boys anyway? I believe that's true. I'm not trying to put no guys down, but I do believe girls do mature faster than guys, and that's another thing that bridges that gap a little bit. I know I was the only child, and I was always around older people. My grandmother raised me, and we were always in church, and we was always around the church folks. And so I grew up fairly quickly because I was the only child and spoiled and around a whole bunch of adults, hearing all their conversations, experienced a lot in the home as a kid. So everything is also based on each situation and scenario, I believe, can't always be based on the same way. Everything has to be addressed as as it comes. And I think that for the most part, I think we shouldn't look at it as trying to sabotage somebody for what has happened. I think if something we dropped the ball as a parent and something like that happened, and I don't know, I can't say that we're dropping the ball because some may have, it could be that situation or not. But all I can say is that I would encourage anybody to say, let's just look at this thing, not jump the gun, just try to figure out what's the best thing for the well-being of the child. So go back.
And that's the thing. The beauty of these scenarios in the different perspectives that there's no one size fit all model. So some people can look at it and they say it's always the same. It's always negative. But whenever there's negative situations, positive can come out of it. And when y'all were talking about being on the brink of dismissal and academically dismissed, I was at that point in college. Now, I don't even know if my mother knew the status of that because when you're in college, you don't have to share that
Yes,
information
that's so
with
true.
parents.
That's why
So
I didn't know about my
yeah,
daughter.
she she probably never knew, and she probably just assumed business as usual. In high school, I went through. I always had uh, between like 87 to 90 average, pretty much that B plus to A range. So it was always like easy work. When I got to college, I opened up a little bit. I was quiet and shy in high school. I opened up a little bit. You introduced more alcohol, well, on a daily basis, something that you didn't have to get from a parent or your little paycheck. It was people on the door. The white guys had beer balls and kegs in their room. Like David, we got a kegger going on. You're like, what? And just hanging out. More girls from different from your city, from Buffalo, New York, Syracuse, all over.
Yeah, man.
So
Whoa.
the
Yeah.
sky's the limit.
Yeah,
But
buddy.
there's a certain thing called standard of academic progress, SAP, that people don't know when you go to college and you get scholarships and all that. That's why on one of the previous shows, I said, don't invest your money for your kid to go to college unless it's a sure bet. Because you could save up for the time they were 1 to the time they get 18, say, oh, I got a nice little penny saved for them. Think about the social factors that's involved. That standard of academic progress, it's called SOAP, standard of academic progress. They look at the semesters you've been in. You got to have a certain amount of credit hours and a certain GPA. If you don't fit that bill, you're gone. That money is gone, and it's over. And what some kids do, they go back to school and they don't have nowhere to stay because they got to stay with like, I'm just coming up here, I'm not in class, but my parents don't know that I got dismissed, so can I stay in your room? They don't got no meal plan, they ain't got no damn money, so you got to bring them sandwiches and however food to feed them. They just hanging out. There's people who hung out for a year up at college campus, and you be like, damn, why you ain't going to class? When everybody going to class, what you doing? What time your class?
It's funny you mentioned that because that's what I did. And I told the story Monday, I do believe, or last week. I didn't go to school directly after I graduated high school, but I did hang out on college campus. Shout out to the 5th floor Porter Hall, people that took good care of me. But I was working, so I wasn't a burden to anybody. The funny thing was, I remember going to the Bugler Communications building, sitting in class taking notes for my boys. It was an odd situation because I'm like, notes, here you go, man. Because I don't know if I can say gifted, but I was certainly intelligent in that regard, that I could sit in on conversations that I really didn't have a great deal of knowledge about and still follow. That's why I always tell people, there's no situation that you can put me in that I'm not comfortable in. For a lot of people, they feel overwhelmed that let's take engineering, for example. Let's say somebody was around a bunch of engineers and they're talking about building this and building that. I could sit in on that conversation and listen and not be overwhelmed because I'd be able to pick up certain things. Now, I don't know if that's because when it comes to science and things of that nature, I'm kind of inclined, and there would just be some things that I would just be like, okay, this is just boring. I got to get out of here. Like I love philosophy, as intricate as philosophy can be. I remember one night, I'm laying in my bed now. I got a philosophy book about this thick on my chest, and I'm reading all these things by Immanuel Kant, Descartes, and I'm thinking, what the hell is all this about? The omnipotent, the omnipresent. I'm just like, who the hell cares about this stuff, man? This is, how is this gonna make me more money? How is it gonna make me a more well-rounded person? And at the time, I'm 23, 22, 23, and I was always a little older than my average college classmates, which is why they probably always try to hit me up. to get them alcohol. And I'd be like, how old are you? Come on, man, you old enough. I said, I know I'm old enough, but are you old enough? And it's just like what you talked about, Dave, keggers, beer balls. I remember one day coming home from work, got back to my dorm room, and I'm tired as hell. So I wake up in the morning and I could smell this foul odor, just putrid. I open my door, man, and I look, and all I see is this is disgusting. So you may want to avert your ears, people, if you have a weak stomach. Just vomit all down my door, in front of my door, man. I'm thinking, what?
College life. Good times.
I'm thinking, what the hell? So later that day, my man next door to me, my boys, my good boys, we went to the EOP class. Well, at least both of them, Byron and Jeremy. They said, "Yo, man, homegirl got sick, man, and she got too much to drink and she threw up." I said, it's all good. I said, I'm just glad nobody's hurt because I'm like, this is just crazy. But I never really got to partake in that aspect of the college life because I always went home to work. So, classes during the week, home on the weekends to get, keep a cute couple dollars in my pocket. And that was my college life. So I missed a lot of the frat parties. So, when people start talking about all the Greek sororities, I'm just like, I went to maybe, in the 3 years I stayed, I went to maybe like half a dozen parties, off-campus parties. The rest of my time was spent working. So I've always grew up differently than everybody else. And even into my adulthood, I still do things differently than everybody else. This is why a lot of people look at me and they just say, do you do anything? Where do you go? What do you do? I'm like, trust me, I live my life. I just don't live it in the public eye. Always have.
So that's one of the things, like I said, with the scenario, the 22. If you can graduate from college, I always tell people it wasn't so much about academics. I don't remember half of that crap. It's more about the survival skills and things that you go through. So instead of saying, we're gonna put this guy in jail, you need to think he's been through some things at college. He's been through some things. So he may be the type that, even though look at the age difference, and I'm not trying to promote older people with younger ones, but if you look at it as like good and bad, you would say, damn, she picked the winner. She picked the winner. He's a graduate instead of someone that's who hasn't done anything. So that's why, like I said, I was faced with that brink of being academically dismissed, and luckily I had someone that was, he was like a family member, but he worked up there, so he was always like my mentor, and he reined in me on one of my evaluations. I thought I was cool, and he put everything in perspective and said, "Look at all your buddies, where they at?" I'm like, they dismissed. And he was like, dude, you know how highly I speak on you? He said, if you get dismissed, what you gonna do? Are you gonna hang out on the corner with the rest of them fools on Highland Avenue? Yeah. He said, what skill do you have? I didn't have no skill. It's not like I'll say, well, I'll go here and do that. I put everything on academics that I would end up landing a job. So he roasted me. He cussed me out. And back in them days, you took it. You didn't say, oh, you cussing me out? I'm about to report you, or whatever the case is. I went back to my dorm room and cried like a baby. Like, damn, I really don't have none. But I was at that point like, damn, either I get it together by this semester or I'm going to be dismissed. So I came back strong and would come back, show him my papers, test scores. And then one time I went to his office. I'm like, yo, Tony, this is what I got. And then he cussed me out again. He was like, excuse my language. I don't know. We cuss on. He was like, why the fuck you keep coming here showing me this shit? And I said, I'm doing better. He's like, Dave, you always could have did this. You always could do it. I believe in you, dude. You always could do this. You disappointed me because you let all this other stuff get involved, and they're no longer here. You still here. He said, I vouch for you. I believe in you. And he said, what example would you make for your siblings? What would your mother, your grandmother, and them think? So I tightened up and I got through it. So it's one of them things. Sometimes we have to go through things to get where we going. That's my
Right.
story.
If just to also piggyback on that part you were saying about, at least he was a college grad, um, in a scenario that I know of, that was the mindset of the mother. It's like, well, he's a graduate from high school. I mean, from high school and now in college, work a good job and has his own vehicle. He's in the right direction, opposed to a drug dealer or somebody that's not trying to work, to sitting around playing video games all day. And that's the kind of future future husband potential that you want to see your daughter with. And if you can snap them when they're young, hey, go for it. Because there's a lot of great stories of people being together 50 years from being together when they were kids, or so that's just another way to look at it as well. I kind of agreed with that, to be honest. And then I just want to give a shout out to my NCCC folks, because y'all talk about college. I told Buff State, and to you talking about NU. NCCC. There was no. I don't think there's a school like Trip in that lunchroom, in that game room, because that's when we got caught stuck. Because I was in Trip for my associates, and I'm telling you, I couldn't get out that space because we was always just having a ball in there. Just it was always some fun. And I don't think anybody graduated at the time hanging out in that area. So and in Trip, we always was hanging out in the lunchroom, the game room, or the basketball court, racquetball, whatever. I don't think I tell people it took me 19 years to get my associate's degree. Because 19 years to get my associates. Then I went on and did everything online. And that was on finished online. And everything I did now from the rest after up to that 19th year was all online. But before then, it took me 19 years just because I kept hanging out in the cafeteria. So, you can
I
get
don't
caught
think.
up in those areas. I don't know if anybody, graduated or went to school in Trip or graduated. I'm an alumni because I
But I
graduated.
don't think there's any school that doesn't have its set of things. I know Buff State did. For us, it was the student union. They had a game room there before they changed it. They've made so many changes to Buff State. I'm not even liking the school anymore. I had to speak to the. I got to go speak to the chancellors, man. But Bengal pause, man. The Bengal pause at Buff State occurred on Tuesday and Thursdays. There was a period where there was no class, so it made office hours for professors a little easier, so you could always get academic assistance, or you had your organizational meetings. So for me, it was AASO, which was an African American student organization, and that's what David's brother Carlos was president in it, and for there, I got my chops in student government, and I think that's where I started to develop an innate desire for running for office and leadership roles, because I remember there was a huge to do when I think it was Smashing Pumpkins was brought there, and there was a segment of the student body population that was just outraged. One, because Smashing Pumpkins only, they only cater to a certain demographic, and we were saying, but why can't we get this group there? Why can't we get this group there? And they said, this is plain and simple. They said, hey, if you guys want to have a voice in what entertainment comes here, run for student government. And people were like, oh man, we can't get on there. We can't do this. And I said, well, why not? Why not run for this office? If we gonna complain, the least we can do is attempt to do something. So I ran that semester and I actually won. And people were just like, I can't believe it. They said, well, nothing beats a failure but a try. I said, if I don't win, it certainly isn't for lack of effort. So aside from sixth grade student council, that was actually where I got my first taste of being in a position of leadership and authority and looking at budgets in determining how funding was allocated for certain things. So a lot of people think, and understandably so, because for me, I really don't look on that as a bellwether moment, but I think it is now when I turn around in hindsight and look at it, because from that position, we when they were talking about when SUNY was talking about cuts to Pal, Pal, wow, cuts to I'm sorry, what's the yeah, to tap, to tap and everything else. We loaded up the buses and we went down to Albany, and we're talking about people from SUNY and CUNY, and CUNY, of course, is the city of New York University, and we down there, 6,000-7,000 students strong, talking about y'all not cutting higher ed, y'all cut so much from education that it's time to stop, because either you're cutting and you're raising tuition, or you're just raising tuition. So for me, I sit back and I look at all these things, and I'm just like, it's like you said, David, college teaches you about survival. So I was, when I was academically dismissed, I had the job to fall back on. So I was able to kind of transition to working. So I didn't really have that time to sit around and lament not succeeding. So it's just funny how life happens and it unfolds. And for me, I just kind of settle in a little bit more. And I think that's a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was in foster care. So I learned to acclimate to changing things very quickly because it was necessary. I needed to survive.
It reminds me of a funny story. And this actually happened today during dismissal time in the hallway at the end of the school day. One of my buddies, I don't know if he's listening, sometimes he checks in on the show. J. Rob was talking about in college how he used to watch. He said, as he said, older heads say the stories, the soap operas, and he was like, how I used to watch All My Children, and I was like, damn, that's how. I said I used to set my schedule around All My Children. And so certain classes are like, oh man, I don't want to miss All My Children. And my coworker, she's about J Rob is I don't know, he's probably 52, 53. I'm 50, about to be 51. And she's probably like 36. So she's sitting there laughing, whatever. I said, yeah, I did the same thing. And she like, wow. Then he was like, and what was the story after All My Children? I was like, One Life to Live. And I said, that was the way to get girls. That was the way to get girls when you knew the stories. And I didn't get hooked on it. And he said the same thing. He said the reason why he got hooked because he had maybe tore his ACL or something in high school and he had to be home. So he had no choice but to watch it. Remember back in them days, you had one TV or you had a couple TVs, but the big TV, if your mother was watching soaps and you wanted to watch it, you had to watch it too. And I think I was out for a couple of days. I was sick. So I started watching All My Children. And it led when I went to college. And I know Dietrich, he probably listening like, you so gay. But but I started watching All My Children. So every time, we be talking about the girls, we're like, oh, I wonder if Natalie gonna get out the well and Dimitri and all that. I would know what was going on. So next thing you know, the guy's like, damn, what are you talking about, David? Like, man, you really watch that stuff? And next thing you know, they start trying to hang out and watch it because I had all this commonalities with these women in the stories or whatever. Now, I didn't do it for that reason because I actually had got hooked on watching it. And I was kind of really sad when that stuff went off. That was like, I don't know what world I was in.
It's still on. Isn't it still on?
Some of them are, but All My Children and One Life to Live, those was my two. And they're not on anymore.
That's crazy.
I'm gonna tell you mine. I set my schedule around three things. Jerry Springer.
Well, you get it here. You get it here. Jerry Springer on most nights.
Jerry Springer. You got me thinking All My Children. I don't know why, because I didn't watch it. But Jerry Springer, The Bold and the Beautiful, and The Young and the Restless.
I'm about to say The Bold and the Beautiful.
I'm a fan of the Young and the Restless, boy. And you know what always captivated me about the Young and the Restless was a theme song. That theme song is just money.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care what I'm doing. If I hear that song, I stop and listen. And you know what else that song reminds me of? Is Welcome Back, Carter. That's one of those songs for me that's timeless. Because it takes me back to a time when we were, certainly I was carefree. They have a care in the world. And I sit there and I listen to those lyrics, and it almost elevates me, to the point where, and I'll be the first to say, I'm in my bedroom, and if I'm playing that song, time stands still. Nothing else is going on. Nothing. I don't hear anything else. And my room, I don't know if it's the acoustics in my room or just the building, but it sounds so rich. And it's like a moment in time captured in musical form.
I think with the stories, there's a lot of men that watch the stories, which is still surprising to me. But thinking about what you said, David, because like if you're home and your mother's watching it, I know some guys, it was like a ritual, and they still watched it because that was something that them and their mother did. So they did it in honor of the mom, even the mom after the mom passed, So that's funny to hear you say you watched all my children.
My children.
That's how it happened, though.
How funny. That was one of my best things.
And like mine was Young and the Restless. I wouldn't get into Bold and the Beautiful sometimes, but Young and the Restless, and then after that, because it came on right before Bold and the Beautiful. But,
well, the reason why I got hooked in the Bold and Beautiful because they would move characters from one. So and I'm going to use some of the names that they use. I don't care who says what. After they were having their problems with Jabot Cosmetics, they would go over to the other one, and Jack would start getting involved with whoever it was, and I can't remember the other girl's name. And then they had the back and forth war between the two companies, and it was just like, yo, what they gonna do now? Jack over here doing this with homegirl. And that's the way I got caught up, because I always thought the Bold and Beautiful. I'm like, what can you do in a half an hour? That reminds, a half an hour was like the 20-minute workout. You didn't work out for actually half an hour. It actually only worked out for 22 minutes. Just in case those of you who don't know, 30-minute TV shows are only 22 minutes long because of the commercials they run.
Because of the
commercials,
check that. Right.
That was a tease.
Fact check that.
And what's funny about that, then we're going to go into the You Need Counseling segment. When I first moved down to Baltimore, I was staying with my brother. So that was my unwind time. Actually, when we got the cable package, I made sure we got the package Soap Network. And they would come in like, dude, for real? Every day. Like, you serious, right? Watching this. Like, very serious. So that was my hour of time. And granted, I was about 35 there. And I would sit there and they're like, you still watch this crap, man? And that would be my time. Well, no, actually it's 2 hours because all my children, they both was an hour long. So, and I was like, man, I had to have that Soap Network, and good times, man. And you never know things that happen out of certain situations. And I know some people may go, well, y'all getting off task. What happened to the 22-year-old and the 16-year-old? But all this stuff is related. And you have, it's like a tree with branches, whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure that these scenarios happen in those soap operas.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So now we're going to get into the segment of you. Who needs counseling? First thing. You know me, I got a lot of irritations. I say this, always lean to it. One of the things that aggravate me is when people so loud when they out in public on their cell phones. You're in a restaurant, they could be in a booth or whatever right behind you. They're so damn loud, and they loud as hell, yelling out all their business in public. I don't need to hear you talk about you sleep naked, you don't own any pajamas, you're no good friends and family. What is the deal with that? What is the deal? I know cell phones are mobile and people keep the conversations going. But me, I'm always conscious of if I'm on the phone or whatever, I don't want to be loud. I don't want to be standing in line or approaching the line and people, like, can I help you? And you're like, girl, well, I'm going to say this. Y'all ain't going to like it. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, the rest of y'all panel, don't come on here now after this statement because I ain't letting you in. Many times it's women. What is the problem with y'all being so damn loud on your phone? Girl, let me tell you this. Listen, hang up that call. Tell them you're going to call them back. If you're out of the restaurant, I get back with you. I'm about to eat. Pipe it down. Pipe it down. You need damn counseling because you're too damn loquacious. You talk too loud. You run your mouth too much. Chill. Certain places you don't need all that in public places. You need counseling. Any rebuttal? Anything said?
I have a rebuttal. I have a rebuttal because I was just in a restaurant. There was a very loud man just talking away in the restaurant. just talking all loud, and the person I was with was like, dang, they showed like they could barely even focus because this man was talking so loud in the restaurant. So, all I'm saying, it goes both ways.
That's probably a rare situation where a man
Not
is just
at all.
loud like that.
I hear men with their loud mouth. Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? You on the phone with their friends or just making a whole ruckus in the store, period, because they want to be heard. Because they want to be seen. So they're being loud. So men do it too.
Herb, anything you got to say about that?
I don't do it. But what I don't want to see and I can't stand is people walking around with Bluetooth in their goddamn ears having a conversation like this. They need counseling. Because them are the ones that really abuse that mother. Stop it.
All right. Here's number 2. Well, this one is, we kind of already talked about the bus state thing. So actually, that was on my list. We already talked about that. But it's also, and I don't know the end results of that, something came across my alert. These kids must be in my neighborhood. 2 young boys. They're missing. 2 young boys. They're missing. And like I said, I have to check my alerts and see if they was found. I keep saying, and this shit pissed me off, that parents, back in our days, you had a code. The street lights. When the street lights was on, you need to be visible. If your parents came out, they need to be able to eyeball and see you. These kids today, and I know we talked about let them have freedom and all that stuff, that don't pertain to 12, 13-year-olds that you walking around and you 4 or 5 blocks away. And I keep saying, it's not a joke when you had them vans where it's only the 2 windows, the passenger and the driver in the front window. Those are rape vans. And these people are coming to get you. They're coming to get you. And I hope these young boys, I hope it wasn't the case that they got mad at the parents and they staying at a friend's house. Because if you're a parent, you let some kids stay there and you ain't contacting parents and you harboring teens, you need counseling. But parents, you need to know where your kid's at. And I know, look here, you said about the 360 or whatever thing is.
Yeah.
Good idea, whatever. These kids is just too loose, man. Around here walking around doing that. Can't be that way, man. You got some sick ass people that's trying to get kids. That's their whole thing. They don't work. They got a van. They got a few dollars. They got a couple packs of cigarettes, a few dollars for gas, and they riding around trying to get kids.
No, that's true. I had this scenario with my daughter. She was going to take some bottles to the store, and some guy was trying to pull up on her while she was taking bottles to the store. Like, you want to ride? You want me to take an older guy? You know. So that's definitely happening. She called me on her cell phone, like, "Mom, this guy is following me." I couldn't jump in my car fast enough, and I was gonna chase that dude down. and he was gonna get some Troy. I was gonna call the police. I wasn't gonna beat him up or anything. I was gonna call the police and say this guy is, was harassing my daughter. I was gonna take it that way. So, um, but at the moment I was angry, and wish I had a bat in my car, but I didn't do that. I didn't say anything. I just got her and I said, let's make sure she got home safe. But that Life 360 app is good. I can see where all my children's whereabouts is. They tell me where they're going, and I do check to make sure that they are there. So we do need to make sure these kids have cell phones. Tell them to download the app.
Yeah, they got to do something because I'm like, two brothers they're missing, and they live around in my area. They're around this area, so it's scary. But oftentimes I see kids late at night walking around and all this stuff, and you only hope that you could travel, that they travel in packs or whatever. But even with young ladies, two or three girls walking around, especially as it get hot, and you got a lot of lurkers and people that's looking for things. And another thing, I probably brought this up before, Mr. Softy, stop bringing your ass in this neighborhood at 8:30, 9 o'clock on the school night, because your ass might be one of the ones that's picking up kids. I don't know where they do that at, but here it could be 9:30, 10 o'clock. You hear that damn music. And I had to cuss him out one day, and he had to ride up. Like, dude, stop coming over here. Stop coming over here. Nobody want that high-priced ice cream or whatever the case. You got to get a better bang for your buck, go into the store, get some cones and a bucket of ice cream, then that shit. I know it's soft, and it's Mr. Softy, but no, serious. I say that to be facetious, but it's a problem with missing kids. It's really a problem, and it's not cool.
I got something that it's an oldie but a goodie. I just want y'all to listen.
I did that. I brought that back out when I was running for city council because that's something I said we need to be more aware where our kids are. So absolutely, I did that. I brought that back with that saying, that whole commercial and everything.
Well, it's Channel 7, it's Channel 7's promo. And when we were talking about it, it's like, that's funny because I just saw that there was a lot of news stations that apparently had it. So I don't know where it originated from, but like David said, streetlights. There was a song called Streetlights too, but I think and this is something we touched on earlier, with the advent of technology, we feel that we can, let our kids go and it's safer because we have the technology. As we discussed earlier with the missing young lady, the technology is not foolproof. It's only as good as the people using it, and there's still no substitution for teaching and installing the wisdom and the knowledge into people, not just kids, but adults. Because sometimes as adults, we get turned around and we don't know where the hell we are. So how can we expect the kids to know if we as adults don't know? Because I can't to be gentle. There's some adults that I deal with working, and the thought just goes through my mind. I'm like, you guys have children. That's scary.
But it's something that you said, David, that triggered a thought what I was going to say before Herbert started talking. Oh, I remember we were home and it was late at night, like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And my daughters was watching live some girls fighting out at some park. And we knew one of the young girls. And I was like, who out there? And I said, I wonder if her mother know. And I tried to call the mother. I tried to call her on Facebook because I didn't have her number. And I couldn't get through. But I'm going to always try. I'm like, no, she shouldn't be out there fighting. I know her mother don't know she out there. and I couldn't get through to her. So I just started praying for her because ain't nothing else I could do. I wasn't going out there to try to break it up because they could have been fighting, they could have been shooting or with knives, and I'm not getting in the middle of that. But I did all that I could do to try to help save that girl's life if something could happen. Because girls got beat up before and got brain damage and died, and or stabbed and died, and just it's just sad. But I just hope that if anybody saw any of my kids out there fighting and they ain't had no business being out there late at night, call me. Please let me know because I don't want to, have my kid out there in some serious situation that they don't need to be in.
It's treacherous. And the thing about it is, it's only May. It's only May. When it get hotter, people lurk, people out free. Like I said, those vans, be cautious of those vans. If they don't have no company logo on it, and it's just a plain white, it don't even got to be white now. They probably changing the red or whatever the case is. Those vans, I'm always, even as an adult, when I look at people with those vans, no windows on the side, nothing in the back, and just the side and the front. Be careful because people are jumping out those vans and grabbing and snatching up people. And it's happening probably in like a lot of bigger cities and stuff, but it's going on. So be careful. And they love in the morning because some kids are walkers and they walk to school and they may not have friends and they walk back. And some people, they just prey on that stuff. And it's sad that we live in this world that we live in. So that's that. And my final one of who needs counseling, people. I know we go through things on social media, and sometimes you get upset, you get angry, and you want to unfriend people, you want to block people because it happened during a certain time, a heated argument. Stop friending and unfriending. When you get upset, grow up and keep it moving. You might as well say, I don't want to be with you might as well be a kid. I don't want to be your friends anymore because you hurt my feelings. Do you want some cheese to go with that wine? Do you want some cheese to go with that wine as a grown ass adult? Know what you are? A fickle-minded person. You need counseling. Listen, I don't do all that. You unfriend me and all that. We ain't gonna keep going back and forth. I was mad at you, so I blocked you and all that. Well, we won't have this feature no more. And don't say, well, I like to watch your shows and all that stuff. Could you open up something so that I could at least do that? No, G. No. I don't play them games or whatever. And y'all already know, I told y'all before, I don't do the friend zone shit. We ain't about to be buddy after we've been we had Dylan's or whatever the case is. Now all of a sudden you want to friend zone me and you want to be buddy. Nah. As Lakia said, and Girly Girl repeated it. You want a friend zone? You keep your shit over there. And I'm going to keep my shit over there. And we just go keep it moving. That's just how it's going to be. I'm not going to play games with social media, unfriending and friending and all that stuff. Or, wait, that was a year ago. Let's be friends again on social media. Nope. Hit me up on my phone. Hit me up on my jack. And we'll talk like that. You ain't privy to that no more. Sorry, but not sorry. And that's what I got. Herb, Lakia, y'all got anything about that segment, that last point?
I do not. Once I drop go.
I'm going to say this. Women can tend to be more emotional beings than guys. Okay. We will move a little bit more quicker, when it comes to unfriending because we like, oh man, I don't have nothing else to do. I want to see none of his stuff, because we care about that guy if it's that time, if it's that situation. And for the most part, it probably is. You're dating the person and You got in a big argument, and now you're like, it's over. I don't want to see none of this stuff. I don't want to hear nothing. I just want to move on. So women can be a little emotional. Would I say they're being fickle? No.
Fickle-minded. Fickle-minded.
It's in the moment. As I was sharing, it's in the moment. And they're not being fickle, they're being emotional. So all I'm saying, and what I would encourage you, Brother David, is that you would be more kind, as I would always tell people, just be kinder and say, it's all good. And just let it flow. That's all. Be open. Stay open. Just stay open.
Oh man. The one thing I learned from Brother Herb is you get through the process and you let people know what you stand for, and they violate it, it's done. You already know. You already know this how I get down. You already know. I already told you. So you have to respect it or you don't.
It's the same I would say to her. The thing is what I think about with guys, you guys, I'm going to say, I'm putting all y'all together in this one. Is that you guys act like I can't forgive. Y'all y'all want to hold on and harbor stuff and hold on and not forgive. Like we have to let, and I believe women are more willing to forgive and let go and keep going forward. Men want to hold on and keep kind of throwing it in your face that you did wrong and you shouldn't have did it in the first place. So now I'm not gonna waver. That's wrong because women are actually taking a lot of y'all junk as well. Her, Dave, whoever, we're taking stuff. I know we are because that's what we do. And we make excuses for y'all. So what I'm saying is that y'all need to be just a little bit more mindful that y'all stuff do stink too. And it may not have been that scenario, but we have put passes out there for men so that they to continue in whatever was going on. So you should put passes out for us women as well. That's all I'm saying.
Negative, Ghostwriter. That pattern's full.
I forgot I was talking. Oh, I ain't gonna go there.
I'm good with mine. I am solid.
I'm not going. I'm just saying, guys, stay open. Stop with the nonsense. Let love abound in your hearts and your minds towards women freely.
I do to everybody.
Love. That's all I'm saying. Let it go. Stop trying to be this macho man, and you don't want to be. What they used. I heard henpecked men. You don't want to be henpecked men. Yeah, let it go. I know there's some.
Yeah, listen, and like Herb said, it ain't just women. It's guys that play that game too. I want to unfriend you. Really, dude? You unfriended me? Okay. Like, I'm not about to play those games, man. I'm not about to play those games. All right. Closing comments on this show. It was a lot, a full pack, lot of conversation, a lot of different topics, a lot of issues. It was only three of us, so it was a smooth flowing thing. Closing comments based on Summer Loving, Happen So Fast. Who knows where that song came from?
Grease, that's my girl. That was my movie. Now don't try to talk about Grease. Now that's my movie.
Before I close out, I'm going to implore people: hey, run on over to YouTube and hit the like button. Help us spread the love. And you know me, growth and understanding always occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
All right.
I'm going to keep it simple. Love thy neighbor as they will love thyself.
And me for this summer, loving happens so fast. Just weigh out the things. Don't be so quick to jump on and say this person needs this or that. Look at it on an individual basis. And also, you can look at it as a positive. Like, damn, my little 16-year-old daughter she picked her a good one. Because maybe the man you laying next to, Woodrow, may not be all that. Her dad, or whatever the case is. So she might have got her a good one, but we still got to look at the ages and that kind of tied in. We never brought it up like the Romeo and Juliet law that is kind of based on age, and usually it's supposed to be when you're dealing with a minor, 4 years or younger. That's how they base it on, but it's state by state. But what I also found interesting in that is that it's, I guess, and like I said, I'm not trying to promote this, but I guess it's okay for a 16-year-old to have a 22-year-old boyfriend, long as they're not intimate or sleeping together and stuff like that. You'll never know who tells that stuff, whatever. But when they're actually having sex, that's where the problem comes in. So it's a lot of laws, a lot of different things, and I think that's one of the biggest things in this country, whatever. It's too many state by state things, whatever, and stuff need to be more universal. And certain people who prey on this type of stuff, they'll just jump from state to state. Like, well, I'm gonna go here because it's better here, or whatever the case is. So you just got to be mindful, pay attention to stuff, talk to your children, understand them. Most parents know when something's bothering their children. I think women are more keen on that. As far as awareness, when they know something is wrong with them, they can look at their facial expressions or their behavior, may lead them to ask more questions. Guys, is you keep it moving. You say what you say. You may be tentative on certain things, but just pay attention. Know who they talking to. Know your personnel. Some of these things are not controllable because I think you said earlier, Lakia, we can't be with them every minute of the day. It's impossible to have your own life, to take care of a household, and to be able to monitor everything they do, especially when they get older. They're going to have jobs. They're going to want to hang out. They're going to want to do their thing. They want to make money. Yeah, you have to give them that opportunity to make money, be able to spend it, enjoy it, and just be cautious of what they do. It's a tough world out here. It's a tough world. You just got to pay attention. That's what we got to do. Anything else said before we sign off? Well, I can't hear y'all.
Nope.
Yeah, good?
Yes, sir.
Well.
All right, I'm out of here. Tomorrow, Friday. This week went by fast as hell for some reason, but it's Friday. Well, I guess when you get older, that's how it is anyway. Go by fast as hell. Be sunny through the week, and then the forecast for the weekend be like rain, 80% showers on the weekends. That's usually how it is. Mm-hmm. Everybody, stay safe. Be good. See you next time on Monday. Open court discussion and continue dropping posts in the counselor's corner. And hey, let's just learn and grow from each other. I'm out. About to watch this Lakers and Clippers game and about to circulate this video. And people who got still watching, please like and share the video and subscribe to the Controversial Counselors page. Thanks, Herb and Lakia, for a great conversation, great dialogue tonight, and see y'all soon.
All right, man. Y'all take care.
All right. Y'all be great.